All right, welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Emeryville and in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Corte Madera. All right, we're do a little 49er video here. We just got back from Scottsdale, courtesy of New York style Italian sausage. And we're having a good time this week. But of course, we got a lot of football to get into. And Jimmy Ward looks like he's jumping from the 49ers to the Houston Texans. And man, it's a disappointing day. I think this is the biggest loss for the 49ers yet in free agency. I can remember my first memory of Jimmy Ward. He made 14 tackles against Florida State in the Orange Bowl playing for Northern Illinois. And, I was really excited when the Niners drafted him. He was the most impressive corner in Mobile, I should say, the year he came out. And, this year he played nickel cornerback and he transitioned from free safety to nickel cornerback. 9 seasons with the 49ers, had 3 interceptions this year. Really only had 3 interceptions. If you look at his career, started slow. He only had 3 picks in his first 94 regular season NFL games. And he missed a lot of time in 2017 and 2018. A lot of people thought, man, this guy's injury prone and he doesn't make big plays. He was a first round pick out of Northern Illinois of the 49ers in 2014. And he this year became the 49ers number 1 nickelback after he transitioned to nickel from free safety, where Shanahan gave Tayshaun Gibson Jimmy's nickel spot. But, I think it was overblown, to be honest. It wasn't that Jimmy really struggled at safety. It's just the 49ers best alignment had Tayshaun at free safety and Jimmy as the nickel. He winds up thus far with 106 NFL games with the Niners, 79 career starts. He turns 32 this year, so he's getting long in the tooth. 451 career tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 44 passes defensed. When you look at the number, though, that stands out to me, only 7 interceptions. This guy played 106 games and made 7 interceptions. That's just not nearly enough. Now, he had his best interception season this year with 3, but I mean, when you're talking about paying a guy in free agency, you gotta have more than 7 career interceptions if you've played over 100 NFL games. But I will say this: I'm a huge Jimmy Ward fan. The Niners are going to miss out. Why? Because the Niners are the number 1 defense in total. They were number 1 in total defense this year in yards. They were number 1 in points allowed. He's a big part of that. He's a tone setter. Some guys play for money. Some guys play for glory. Some guys play because they just love to play and hit people and blow people up. And that's Jimmy Ward, man. Jimmy Ward loves to play to blow people up. And, the bottom line is once the 49ers re-signed Tayshaun Gibson and gave him the free safety position, it was likely the end of the road for Jimmy with the Niners. Because Jimmy wants to play free safety. And I think the real motivation behind his desire to play free safety is just that free safeties may make more money than nickel corners. So it's a huge loss for the 49ers. You think about Jimmy Ward, he had a 76.1 Pro Football Focus grade this year, which was really good. The other factor that I think has to be considered is that in California, you got a 13.3% California state tax. There's no state tax at all in Texas. So, he's keeping a lot more money and he reunites with D'Amico Ryans. And I'm sure he'll be a tone setting player for D'Amico as D'Amico's trying to establish a culture. Now you look at where the Niners go from here. They've got Tayshaun Gibson at free safety. They've got Talanoa Hufanga at strong safety. They really only have 1 backup safety because Tarvarius Moore is a free agent as well, and that's George Odom, the special teamer. So you have 3 safeties on the roster. Only 2 of them really can play from scrimmage. The other guy's more of a special team ace. So they need to invest in the draft or in free agency in another safety. And then on the corner, you've got Demo Lenore, you got Mooney Ward, you got Samuel Womack, you got Ambry Thomas. Are they going to bring back Emmanuel Mosley? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see where the price goes there. But when you look at Jimmy Ward, you're gonna have a hard time replacing his physicality, his tone setter, his tone setting mentality of he'll blow you up. He's a violent football player who the 49ers, he's the guy that knocked out Tony Pollard in the Dallas game. When he did that, that might have been the biggest play in the game. I mean, and Jimmy Ward is that kind of a player. He's physical. He's physical. He'll knock you out. So I think you win with these kinds of players. Really disappointed to see him go. In free agency, you can't play everybody, that's for sure. So he goes to Houston and he'll help D'Amico establish a culture of winning there. But for the 49ers, I think it's really clear that they need more and better corners. So let's say Hufanga and Gibson are your starters at free safety for Gibson, strong safety for Hufanga. You definitely need a couple safeties out of this draft. And even though you've got, some decent corners, probably need a couple corners out of the draft. And, they're going to really have to hit in this draft. Now, who are the top nickel corners in the upcoming draft? Clark Phillips out of Utah is a really interesting player. He's probably going to be a late first round pick. So he probably will be gone by the time the Niners pick. But Clark Phillips out of Utah would be a great addition. Tremendous player, 5'10", about 185 pounds. DJ Turner, who ran spectacularly well for the Michigan Wolverines at Indy at the Combine, he's also a player to watch. He's probably going to be a second round pick, maybe late second for DJ Turner. And I think both those guys are, really strong nickel corners for sure. And then, there are other guys as well that I think you have to look at. I think Caillou Blue Kelly from Stanford might be on the board when the 49ers pick. Julius Brents from K-State, who's a 6'3", 198-pound corner. One guy that I really like from Iowa is Riley Moss, who goes about 6'1", 195, and Moss is a really interesting player that I think could probably transition to playing the slot. Darius Rush from South Carolina, I think is a big corner who could be really, really useful. Jacorian Bennett from Maryland is one of my favorite players in the upcoming draft. 5'11", about 190 pounds, really tough, really physical. So there's a number of guys. Rayshawn Wright from Oregon State, he's got good height, good length. I think he's an interesting player. One guy also to remember, Tyreek Jones out of Boise State. Tyreek Jones, I know the Niners met with him, I believe, in Indy. Just a leader, just a really good guy. I mean, I think you're talking about a day 3 pick, 6'2", 195 pounds. Really like him a lot. As just what kind of person he is, Tyreek Jones. He's a leader on that football team and a really underrated player. So there are some players that they could replace Jimmy with in the draft, and I think that's the area they're going to go. It's going to be a young Niner secondary for sure. Gibson's a veteran. He's going to be the leader back there. But you can't replace tone-setting physical football players like Jimmy Ward. Now, the one guy in free agency that I'd love to see them go after, I can't imagine they could afford him, but C.J. Gardner-Johnson. To me, you win with these kinds of difference makers. And they got a difference maker away from Philly and Javon Hargrave up front. C.J. Gardner-Johnson would be a tremendous difference maker for the 49ers. And to me, that would be an upgrade from Jimmy Ward. So there's going to be options in the draft to replace Jimmy Ward. I don't think you're going to get that kind of physicality from somebody in the draft necessarily. Jamie Robinson's another guy that I really like from Florida State as a physical corner. Jair Brown, physical safety, I should say. Jair Brown from Penn State, very physical, athletic safety as well. Both those guys are going to be fun players to watch. But I think more than anything, the Niners are going to miss Jimmy Ward's coverage ability and his versatility. It's one thing to be able to play safety. It's another thing to be able to cover like a corner. And that's what Jimmy's always had. So tough player to lose, tone setting player, very physical. CJ Gardner-Johnson would be my first choice to replace him in free agency as far as a safety who could also play nickel, who could also play corner in a pinch. He would be the guy. But if they can't get that kind of a player, maybe, they've been linked to Trey Herndon from Jacksonville, who's got some talent for sure. And if you can't get Herndon, you might have to go into the draft. So sad day for the 49ers, though, because Jimmy Ward is a really, really good football player. All right, hope you enjoyed our 49er video. Catch more Niner videos on the Krug Show throughout the week and leading into the draft. Thanks to our sponsors, of course, New York Style Italian Sausage just sent us to Scottsdale for the week, and we appreciate them. And of course, our title sponsor of the Krug Show, Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville, in the Emeryville Public Marketplace, and they're open 7 days a week in Corte Madera, right there in Marin County. Thanks to them as well, and keep it locked on the Krug Show for more Niner coverage right up and through the NFL Draft.